Welcome to the Higher Self Habits podcast, where astrology meets behavioral psychology. Join me, your host, Angela Xavier, and together let's dive into all things astrology, how to align your mindset with your birth chart, and so much more. My intention with this podcast is to inspire you with strategies, tools, and teachings that you need to consistently get after your goals with flow and ease. Your higher self is already doing so. And after all, you are what you repeatedly do. I am so happy to have you here with me, so thank you so much for being here. Now let's begin. Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Self Habits podcast. I am so excited about this series that I created where I interview each of the 12 sun signs, and I specifically chose women in my life who are crushing it in their area of expertise, in their area of passion. And through the conversation, we really highlight their success in this mission and purpose as embodying their higher self. And we cover how it's simultaneously stepping into the purpose of their sun sign. So my intention with this series is for you to learn about your sun sign. And if you're a Capricorn listening to this episode, to hear Bianca's story and get to know her character and see yourself in it and say, wow, understanding Capricorn is understanding how I can better embody my higher self. So without further ado, let's jump into Capricorn. I found it hilarious that first up was Capricorn. I had a series of getting into the groove of meeting with each sun sign, talking about what we're going to talk about. And Bianca the Capricorn was like, let's just get into it. What's the date? I'll be there. I don't need a warm up. Like, perfect, true fashion. So Bianca is a multidisciplinary marketing and communications professional and the CEO of Bois Marketing Group. It's a dynamic digital marketing and public relations agency that provides comprehensive full-stack marketing and PR solutions. Her experience spans traditional and digital marketing avenues, and she has successfully served clients in diverse industries, including entertainment, corporate, and tech. In addition to her professional work, Bianca is the founder of multiple charitable organizations, most notably the founder and executive director of Urban Tales Animal Rescue. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode and get to know Bianca the Capricorn.
I'm so happy to have you here, Bianca. For those listening, Bianca is one of my oldest friends. Like, we'd hang out when we were 12 years old. Yeah. And just over the years, our relationship has just been always constant. And whenever I need specific advice, especially in the career world, guys, like Beyonce.
Leave it. You have to leave it in.
Beyonce, Bianca, same girl. Obviously you can tell I'm a little nervous, but Bianca has been just that constant support for me. She's so full of knowledge in how to create your own message, your own voice, and to market it in a way that is successful, authentic, and brings in that bag. If you haven't seen the title already, just with this little intro of her, I wonder if you can guess what her sign is. Capricorn, here we go.
I'm excited because I feel like everything that we are going to talk about and all the things that you want for this podcast for people is so exciting. And I feel like starting off with Capricorn, the most intense career focused sign, is the way, which is like, it was so funny because I was like, I wonder what all the negative traits of a Capricorn are. And I was reading them and I was like, oh, at least the positive ones are really good, because I'm reading the negative ones and I'm like,
you tapped into your grounded wellness girl era early and mastered the good traits.
I was like, yeah, I need to be self-aware of these other ones. And it's like never feeling satisfied and like restlessness and all those things, which I'm like, is that the negative signs of my or negative traits of my sign, or is that my adult ADHD? I don't know.
A little bit of both, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. And I love that you brought that up because, starting off with Capricorn, if you think of just like the modern day calendar rather than the seasonal calendar, it's the first sign of the new year. And that's what I love about like just the overall energy when the new year starts, and that there's this Capricorn energy all throughout that, where you jot down your goals and you make them extremely practical, and you just put one foot in front of the other, because you Capricorn energy is all about the work that's needed for the long-term goal. Like what I love about Capricorn suns, and I know you resonated really well with my like, we're a Capricorn reel.
Yeah.
And every Capricorn I talk to, it's like, you had your vision planned out for you when you were like 7 years old. Like, you're so aware of like what you wanted, the fact it's going to take some time, take some work, but you were certain. And that is not the case for most of us. So
and with everything I do now, like there's two sides of it, because there's the business side and obviously the animal rescue side. But when I was a kid, I would watch those vet shows, which, like, I don't know if people remember them, but they were like on cable TV. And it was like, one of them was actually filmed in Toronto, and it would be just basically vet things and like vet appointments and animal rescue and animal cops and like all those shows on Animal Planet. And I'd watch them and be like, I want to do something. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a vet or if I wanted to, like, if there was something specific. But I knew that I was going to do something with animals, and that they'd been such a huge part of my life since I could remember. And so I'm like watching that, and then I look back at that time and just life afterwards, and I'm like, yeah, this was all just leading up to this moment where I was just manifesting this without realizing that my whole life was going to be animals now forever.
Led you up to that moment, the breadcrumbs. I love that. That's really cool. Okay, diving into more of the content about yourself, and I really want to leave those listening who are Capricorns inspired, as well as the ones who need more Capricorn energy. Like, that's what I love about our relationship too, being a Cancer, being your opposite sign. Like, I'm like, oh, I just need the Bianca energy. I almost said Beyonce again. What the hell is it? The Bianca energy again, like, in my life. So yeah, let's get into you. I want to ask first and foremost what you believe makes you your higher self.
I think it's like honestly in the last 3 years, maybe 4 years now, I got very big into journaling, manifesting, visualization, and all of that, like the grounding work, which prior to then, when I started, I had a zero clue what it was, for one. And then when I also heard about it the first time, I'm like, okay, this, like, what is that going to do for me, kind of thing. But since I have changed my habits, because it's very much like a part of my daily routine now. I've changed my habits, and that's a huge part of my life. I feel like that is what makes me my higher self, because everything I do, I look at it through a different lens now. And even when I talk to people, I'll realize if they say, like, I was just having this conversation actually with a colleague recently, and they were saying how their partner was driving a certain car that was like a loaner car or something, but they were pretending it was their car because it was a nice car. And they were like, oh, it's like, it's not our car. So, like, it was just funny. And I'm like, no, like, let them do it. If they want to pretend that that's their car and that's their way of like getting in the zone, then let them do that. Cause who knows, maybe in a year they'll have that car. Like, I just think of things differently, and I look at things differently now that I have a different mindset. So I feel like I'm definitely in my higher self when I'm in a positive, like, flow state with everything.
I love that. I love that so much. I feel there's a lot to be said for the genuine programming of your brain. And I think too, like, a lot of people who are more right-brained, practical, they think of manifestation as this very like ethereal woo-woo, what the heck, So just to hear you like say you came from it from a very like pragmatic, like routine focused of, just studying your own thoughts and like being open to the fact they can change. It's really cool because I feel like it's like relatable. It makes it like possible,
For sure. Yeah, so I say it all the time to people if they're like, oh, like, this is all so great, like, this is a dream, or like what you're doing is a dream. I'm like, it's not like, it very much was a dream, but it also is a combination of a lot of hard work and a lot of just routine and regimen. And like, journaling for me is part of a routine, but when you're writing down your goals constantly and writing down affirmations constantly and telling them to yourself, of course you're going to change the structure of how you think, and then also of how motivated you are to get anything done. If you're holding yourself accountable and reading that back to yourself every day, you're like, okay, I can do this. Or if you look back on old entries and you're just like, oh, I did all of this already. It's very rewarding, and it's like, okay, this actually works. Because it's not a magical, like, you're not casting a spell and getting what you want. You're just holding yourself, accountable for it and speaking that into existence, and you're super focused. And I'm like a huge, huge, huge manifestation and journaling.
One thing too, just you sharing that, it really sparked another theme I absolutely love about Capricorn energy. Again, I kind of bring it back to how it's the beginning of the year. It's literally like just after the winter solstice, the longest night we have in the whole year. And this concept of Capricorn being the mountain goat, it's scaling the mountain. Like if you actually think about a mountain goat's life, like how it has to scale on these, right? And it's like absolutely insane, the weather conditions. And it's like, what the fuck are goats doing here? Like, what do they even eat? Rocks? Like, it boggles my mind. Yeah. But they keep climbing. They keep on this grind, and there's no one else fucking there in this condition to watch it, but they still go anyway. And it comes back to this concept that I read time and time again explaining Capricorn energy, that it's not here to teach us to survive, which is more about like the first signs, like especially Cancer, like get your needs met. Capricorn being the opposite is it's to teach you how to thrive. Like take what you got, be very pragmatic with the resources you have, and like blow your life up with it because you can, and it's just I hear that in what you're sharing with how you connect with your higher self there.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been an entrepreneur for a while, obviously. I said that already, but and you run multiple successful businesses, focusing on marketing and communications, and you're the founder of multiple charitable organizations. So I really just want you to get into that and tell us about yourself and what you've been up to lately.
Yeah. So I have a very long history when it comes to animal work and my marketing work, and then they intersected at some point. But yes, I started off working in animal hospitals many, many, many years ago, and I was like 17. And I did that for a long time. Somewhere along that path, I ended up going into specialty animal hospital roles, like emergency neurology, stuff like that. But then I was also doing marketing on the side. Like I'd started to get into that as a career. I had no prior background. I had no schooling for that. I just was given an opportunity at the time and took it as a marketing coordinator. That was like my first experience with something that I interviewed for that I wasn't qualified for, and I ended up getting it. Actually, they had initially called me back to say that I didn't have enough experience. And then because I interviewed so well and confidently, they called me back a week and a half later and asked if I wanted the job. So they're like, we've been thinking about it, and like, we really just want to teach you how, like, we think that you can do this. And I'm like, perfect. Because I basically told myself I had that job when I interviewed for it. So I had gone into marketing at the same time as the animal hospital. I was doing both concurrently. And then I ended up leaving the animal hospital because I had also founded Urban Tales. Now, this is like 8 years ago now. I founded Urban Tales. So my thought process at the time was, I'm going to leave the animal hospital. I'm going to focus my full-time career on marketing and communications. So I loved it. And then I'm going to still get my animal fix by all the stuff that I do with the animal rescue. So that was kind of the thought process then. And since then, I've been doing both successfully for many years now. So I worked with corporate clients as an employee for a very long time. And then I started to do sole proprietorship and just contract work. And then I ended up incorporating a business about 4 years ago now, which is a marketing group. So it's this agency component to it, but I also do consulting. And then the animal rescue is still going strong. I ended up moving out to a farm last year. So there's a lot of things I can't say yet in terms of like the expansion, but I'm on a farm, and it's my personal home, but there's also farm animals here, and hopefully at some point this could eventually be a location as well. But for now, we are foster based. We've been foster based for the last 8 years, and it's been fun. It's been challenging, but it's been fun. I'm learning every year, and a lot of what I learn in the animal rescue setting is transferable to work, which is amazing, in terms of like managing teams and people and communications. Um, so it's great. I'm very grateful to be doing both, and they come with their set of challenges, but also with a lot of exciting things. So yeah.
That's amazing. And one thing I know I've shared this with you before, but so Bianca was living downtown Toronto for a better part of a year, right?
I was living there for a while, and the Toronto era was very fun. It felt very fast. But it's like to love Toronto is to hate Toronto, and I have a love hate with it now. But I went from a downtown city life to a farm life real fast, and
I love
adapted
that
really
so
quick.
much. Yeah, like from the outside looking in, like from an astrology perspective too, like when I think of Capricorn, I think of the boss bitch with like the beautiful suit sitting in her office chair with like the huge, window behind her. And it's like, I saw you living that version of Bianca's version. And then going to the farm, if people didn't know your background and like who you genuinely are and are just like one of your followers on Instagram, like it was just like epic. Like you built your empire and then you're like, oh, I can do this from anywhere. I'm just gonna, live on the land, like switching up from your cute, city streets to like feeding your horses. It's just epic. Huge fan.
Living in overalls and coveralls and like snowsuits. Now I'm like buying like very vintage and outlandish snowsuits and wearing them and posting them online, and everyone's like, where do you get those? Oh my god. I'm like, this really switched up from like my city fits that I used to post, and now I'm like, check out my I got Carhartt overalls.
Yeah, it's amazing. I absolutely love that. So what is it within you that decided to lead your life this way?
Well, I feel like from a pretty early age, like I think in my early 20s, I had found it very hard to stay in one spot and like in one I don't want to say career, because like I've always been in marketing, but I just found it really hard to like stay still, and I always wanted to learn more, and I always wanted to do more, and grow things and expand. And I think the vision that I had for myself at the time was just not conducive to the work environments that I was in. So I was always like, hey, I want to do this. I really love doing this, but I have so much knowledge. I had people start coming and asking me for help or advice or things like that. I'm like, I think I could probably just do this as a job. And I could do this full time. So I'd like started doing that. And I think when I like dipped my toe into entrepreneurship and business ownership, I was like, hey, this is 100% what I have to be doing. For a lot of different reasons. But I think being in this space allowed me to continue learning and to continue developing my business and to continue developing just even my personal life, and having the freedom to do all those things. And as soon as I got a taste of it, I was like, okay, this is how I have to live. And I thrive, like similar to how we were talking earlier about a mountain goat's perseverance and like actually having to adapt to its surroundings. I feel like I've thrived with the challenges that come with business ownership, and then also with managing, teams and an organization outside of that. Especially one that I want to mention on this podcast, I am not paid to do. So people ask me all the time if that's my job, and I'm not paid to do what I do with the rescue, but it's very much full-time work. And it's my mission. It's like my passion to do that. And I think having two things that I love to do, especially because a lot of what I do now, I actually have nonprofit clients in my business. I think it's really nice that the two cross over and I have a unique perspective with both. So leading my life this way has come very naturally, and I don't like it was very much just like I feel like it's just in my DNA.
Yeah, totally.
I have to do this.
Because hearing you talk about it, like coming back to the question, like what in you decided, the story you shared of your first interview with no work experience, but you have this confidence that was what shined and they loved. Like,
Mhm.
what, if you can think back to Bianca then, like, what made you decide to just show up in the way you did?
I think it was just I had an interest. I had like no idea what marketing was then. I was like, what exactly is this? And I'm looking into it a little bit and I'm reading the job description. I'm like, this sounds really great. Like, I think I'd be really good at this. And I just had this thought, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go and chat. Like, what's the worst that can happen? They're gonna say no. Like,
Mm.
I feel like um I think I conditioned myself early, and that, mind you, this is probably like a whole other separate like conversation of how I got came to think this way. But I think I was pretty conditioned pretty early that like rejection to me is not it's not final. Like, there's no
Mm.
finality in it. Like, if someone says no, then it is what it is, and you learn something and move on. Like, I've
Super
always been very
powerful.
practical. Yeah, and I've been practical in that sense. So I was like, I'm gonna go with the worst thing. They'll say no. Like, let me just see and let me talk. And I think I was just like, let me learn more. Like, let me learn more in
Mm.
the process. And if if it doesn't pan out, then whatever. And I went, and yeah, it was a really great discussion, and it was a really great, like, the interview felt more like a discussion than it did an interview at the end of it. And again, yeah, I told them I don't have any background, like, no schooling. I have no previous work background in this. I just think I'd be really good, and I learned very quickly. And yeah, they said no, and then they said yes.
I love that. That just like shows you that failure isn't actually failure, it's a redirection. And
For sure.
you just talking about how the mountain goat and the perseverance, it brings me to think of this quote I recently heard by Earl Nightingale, in that faith is another word for perseverance,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And you just having that faith that, like, I don't know, can try it. Like, what's to lose? And then just
Yeah.
persevere through it. Just keep trying. Like, it's not a big
Yeah.
deal, guys. Like,
Mhm.
why are
Yeah.
emotions involved in this decision? Like,
It's true. If I didn't, like, fail as many times as I have, or, like, things didn't go the way that they were supposed to, like, I wouldn't have learned as much as I know at
mm,
31. Like,
yeah.
I was having a conversation with a mutual friend of ours actually about, like, just like, gratitude and looking back. And I have people that say all the time, they're like, "Oh my gosh, like, you do this, it's so amazing. You do this, so amazing." And for me, every day, I'm just like, "Oh, thanks so much." Like, I don't take compliments very well. I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm just like, "Oh, thanks. You wanna come see the horses?" Like, so I don't actually stop to think about how much I've done to date. And then sometimes when I'm journaling, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm doing gratitude," and I'll write it down there and read it back, and I'm like, "Holy crap, like, this is crazy." Like, a lot of what I've done, I'm like, I couldn't have dreamed of actually doing when I was 10. And now I'm like, "Okay, this is," because, like, at that time, I couldn't think of what I wanted to do. I was like, "Do I wanna do this? Do I wanna do this?" In school, you're constantly drilled, like, "What do you
Yeah.
wanna be? What do you wanna do?" And I was always like, "I don't know," and I felt stressed out by it, and now it's
Yeah.
happened, and I'm like, I couldn't even imagine doing it then. So the fact that I do it now, I feel like taking time to be present and to,
Mm.
like, take in your accomplishments is huge. Because with our friend that I was chatting with, I was like, "You have done so much. You need to, like, stop to look back on everything you've accomplished and be super stoked about it." And she was like, "Yeah, you're right."
Yeah. Sit in it, feel it,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, Through this process, what has been the most rewarding, or in other words, felt like you were embodying your higher self, and why is that so?
I think the most rewarding thing is probably with the organization, so with Urban Tales the Rescue, bringing so many people together with a common, like, shared goal.
Mm.
The organization started as just me, and then it was me and 2 other people, and then 4 other people, and now there's 30 people, not all like, full-time volunteering, but there's 30 people in the organization. I say the core team is probably like 12 to 15. And that core team and all the other volunteers, everyone has a shared purpose with what we're doing, and everyone's very much believes in the mission and our values and, like, the vision that the organization has. there's a really strong community focus that we have. Like, it's not just about adoptions. Like, we have a huge community focus in terms of making sure people are educated and have resources and have support from an organization, even if they've not adopted a dog from us. Like, there's a whole other side to it that people believe in. So I think the most rewarding thing is having brought people together and then seeing people operate independently within the organization without needing me has also been very rewarding, because I'm like feeling like I've empowered other people to make decisions in the best interests of the organization without having to feel like, I'm standing over them, like
Yes.
helping with the decision making. So honestly, like, being able to pass work to somebody else and see them do such a great job and manage things so well that I may have started, but very much could not run without other people. So I think that's the most rewarding thing, passing off my
Yeah.
things to the community and then everyone just like running with it and doing such a great job. Of course, like saving lives and getting medical
Yeah.
attention to animals that need it and all of that's very rewarding. It definitely is. But yeah, I think it's like bigger than that for me. Seeing other people being able to do a great job is awesome.
That's beautiful, honestly. And it brings me back to this idea that like businesses are very spiritual, because when you, like you said, all these people are together with the same vision, the same mission, the energy of your nonprofit charitable organization like has a spirit of its own. And I
Mm-hmm.
find that so fascinating that like the people that you work with can just listen to that spirit and
Mm-hmm.
provide for it and receive from it as well, the rewarding things. And I just think that's a great example of that concept.
Yeah, for
Another
sure.
thing, yeah, isn't that a really interesting way to look at it? Um, Another thing that made me think of this is of what you were saying is how in astrology, Capricorn represents career, right? Authority. It's
Mm-hmm.
ruled by Saturn in the 10th house, which is very like structure,
Yeah.
organization, adult bitch, like let's go,
Yeah.
right? And I was listening to this podcast and I didn't know this. Also, I haven't quoted it, like I haven't looked it up to make sure this is accurate, but
Yeah.
it sounded pretty accurate. She was
Along the
saying,
line.
yeah, she was saying the word authority means author of your story.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that fascinating because Capricorn is the authority in the zodiac because it represents the archetype of the father, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, the ideal father energy is to be that authority to like lead you through your life, show you what's possible. So I just love to hear that example that you just shared, what you found the most rewarding, because it is,
Yeah.
paralleling being in your authority and like feeding the energy of this spirit that you've,
Yeah. Yeah.
created. And it's just a beautiful thing.
I love that. I love having father energy.
Daddy energy.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
That is
But
awesome.
I do. I've actually heard that the authority, like what you mentioned there, I've heard that before as well.
Okay,
Not sure
so
if it was
valid.
like a direct quote, like you said, but it is, yes, I've heard it like that before. So yeah.
Mhm. That's beautiful. I think you do a very good job at that, naturally and intentionally. So getting into that now, like, how do you define embody? If this whole thing has been you embodying your higher self, like, what does
Mhm.
embody even mean to you, right?
I think going back to like what we were talking about earlier about being present, like
Mm,
being in the moment, um, leading the way that, or living, I guess, the way that I'm seeing everything happening around me. Like, I've got like live on a beautiful farm now. I'm surrounded by animals. I'm very lucky to be able to walk outside in the morning and see alpacas and horses, and
your
they rely
babies.
on me. They're my babies. They rely on me. They're very much I'm there for them. I am serving them very much, and my animals inside too, and just like my team and the community and everything like that. I think just being present and giving back and doing like I'm trying to live the way that I see all of this growing and how I see it evolving, and as it changes and evolves, I adapt with it. So I feel like I'm embodying, I guess embody to me is being present enough that you can change and adapt and
Mm,
adjust based on how things are evolving. I think that's probably the best way to
That
narrow it
is,
down.
that's a great perspective on it. I love how you like pivoted it to be like something that proves that you're solid, but also great support for change in this in
Hmm.
a simultaneous way. Wow. I love that.
For sure.
And getting into, how you embody, talk the walk. Sorry, walk the talk. So cringy. Anyway, I can't help it. I'm like, it's back to the authority concept and getting into marketing. Like, I'm like, how do you have the authority but also the authenticity? Because I am like such that cringy weirdo.
You have to. You have to let it
Yeah,
shine.
talk the walk. Okay. So, what are your favorite Capricorn traits that you resonate with the most?
Um, I I honestly I feel like so I've had to tell people before, I like the fact that I'm direct and I'm very logical. I have had to preface conversations before by just being like, don't take this the wrong way. I have a thought and I'm just gonna say exactly what I'm thinking. This is the
Yeah.
only way that I know how to say it. And I'm like, nobody takes offense as far as I know. But people know me to be very direct and very to the point. A lot of my friends that come to me, whether it's like for personal or for business advice, are coming because they know they're gonna get a straight answer. I have been this way for as long as I can remember. So I actually really admire those qualities because I think, especially in business, the fact that I am where I am now and I've dealt with so many different types of people, um, it has been challenging, like having an authoritative voice and having, being younger and also having a really
Mhm.
good grasp on many concepts and being knowledgeable about different things. I've been challenged many times, mostly by men that are older than me. And I think being able to communicate directly and effectively has gotten me to a really great place in my professional life. I think that in my personal life, the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
um, I went a long time in my personal life. Like, I've always been really direct with like work stuff, but in personal, I've kind of, it took me a while to learn how to communicate effectively there in relationships. And I feel like that also really improved when I kind of started to
Mm.
embody that in my personal life and just kind of let that happen. It's just, I really appreciate that I can do that because I look at some, like a lot of other people and have talked to a lot of different people and friends. And I know that they struggle with that. And I'm happy that I can kind of give them advice on that. And I'm happy that it's not something that I struggle with anymore. So being direct, being logical, and I think being ambitious are my
Mhm.
top favorite ones. I think I'm really deeply connected with people that I'm close with. I think any other Capricorn listening probably agree. It's very hard to like open up to people and to be very open with people that you don't really know. But when you do build
Vulnerable.
the relationships that you do have with people and you're not as vulnerable and you put the guard down, those relationships are like cherished relationships.
Yeah.
Um, so I think being like deeply connected with friends and family that I'm open with as well, I just feel it might be a little bit harder to crack the shell of a Capricorn, but when you do, I feel like it's it's nice. So
Yeah.
I like having the deep connection with people that I'm close with as well.
That's amazing. I totally, everything you said, I'm like, yes. And that's what I love about you too. Like, and I think it's really important too. Like, what I love about the sun signs is that it's simply a lens. And
Mhm.
I find all the time, and like, especially with cancers, it's like cancers are always crybabies, right? And it's like, that's my sun
Mhm.
sign. And it's like, I'm so much more than that. Like, cancers, we don't just cry all the fucking time. And then
Yeah.
Capricorns is like, they're so dry, they have no feelings. And it's like, we're all human, though. We all have the spectrum of all of the emotions. It's just the
Mhm.
lens in which you emit it. You know what I mean? The way you
Mhm.
express it. And one thing I love about Capricorns, and I know this, like I see it in every Capricorn I know, is this like relentless desire to give, to care. But
Mhm.
the emotions aren't like leading the parade. It's literally being there, like creating environments, the things you do in your rescue, and just genuinely like being pragmatic and practical with how you open your heart and give. And so for all the Capricorns listening out there, I see you.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. It's still a parent, right? The father is a loving, parent. They're here to foster and raise something. Like, without a doubt, there's going to be a huge heart involved. It's just,
For sure.
people don't understand that you don't lead with like, how are they feeling before I say this? Or
yeah, I know. You have to be very direct and very ready to make change and to create something. And yeah, I feel very grateful for the way that I am when I'm in being direct and in being very ambitious and like goal oriented, because yeah, I'm always like 110% with everything I do. And if I wasn't that way, I can't picture a life any other way.
Work hard, play hard.
Big time.
And what about these traits do you believe made a difference in your success and living your fulfilled life where you're at now?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think all of it is like entirely necessary for where I've been and like where I've gotten to so far and the goals that I have moving forward, because there are a lot of things on the go that, again, I wish I could talk about some more of them with the rescue, but I can't yet. But there's so many things that like goals that I have every year, they just get more specific, I feel. And being very goal driven and goal oriented, like it's a huge part of how my life continues to play out and how things continue to grow, because I started off by writing very, very broad things a long time ago in a journal. Now they're very specific down to like the dates and the amounts of, if I'm doing any financial goals, I'm like, this amount of money in my bank account by this date, or this, I want this for this rescue by this time. And I can be super, super focused. And I feel that very focused lens that I look at my goals through and like my plans through, I wouldn't be able to do any of that, and I wouldn't be able to stay this way if it wasn't for those traits. Like I feel like I'd be all over the place. Like I made a joke about it earlier, but I found out that I had ADHD later in life, and I have medication for it. And even prior to being on medication, I did all of this stuff. I only got on meds like a year ago, and now I'm like, oh my God, if I had these sooner, I probably would have been a lawyer or like a doctor or something.
Except you're just
like,
crushing it in like so many multidisciplinary.
Oh my God, don't give a Capricorn 5 ants. I'm so like hyper focused now. I'm like, I'm gonna do everything. But just enhancing the traits that I have.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
One thing that really popped up with you sharing that Capricorn is all about resources, being extremely resourceful, like earth energy, right? And working with what you have and making the most of it. And just with what you shared, I find it important for people to not forget that time is your greatest resource. And just over the years, how you've had the same goal, but it's getting sharper. You're using your time in like the timeline metric, but also being super specific with timelines and numbers, and like having, time be your friend and like your template. It's super cool too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Like you said, the goals like pretty much remain the same. They are just getting sharper or more specific over time. Like I can remember in Stony Creek journaling about wanting the charity to be registered, because we weren't a registered charity at the time. And then a couple months later, we got the registration. And then after that, it was like, okay, now I'm registered. So this is what I want now. And there's always a central theme going on with all of my journals. If anyone found them and read back on everything,
cool.
things just get a little bit more specific. They get, I start putting dates down, and that's how they tell you to do it. They being all the people, you're told to be very specific all the time. And I wasn't for a long time, but it was still working. But I feel that the more specific I got, the better things are. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, being super, super driven and super practical and logical and goal oriented have absolutely helped me crush all those things that I'm writing down. So,
Yeah. And attract the
yeah.
right people too. Another resource,
Mhm.
right? Same
Absolutely.
mission.
Yeah.
And I think too, with opportunities, like there's that beautiful balance between preparation and opportunity, right?
Mhm.
And it's like you got the prep down. Like you're like, I'm ready for whatever. Like just tell me what I got to do. But you're still simultaneously open to the
Mhm.
opportunity. And with what you said about like journaling and having clear goals, there's this quote. I'm just like a quote lady. This is just,
Yeah, lots of quotes.
popping off. But
I
I
love
can't
it.
remember where it's from. It's like a Bible or religious quote, but it says, as you pray, move your feet. You don't
Mhm.
stop and pray. You're praying as you see what doors are open and walk through them. And I think you're a great example of that. So
Thank you. So
uh,
sweet.
I know, I
Trying to
love
take a
you.
compliment. Trying to take, I love you too. I'm trying to take compliments well now. Now that I said that, I'm like, I'm gonna be open to compliments.
Yeah, take it for sure. And as we were talking, I totally remembered a huge inspiration that you were for me. I know a lot of my listeners know I did the bodybuilding competition prep.
Mhm.
Bianca was the first girl I saw do it. Like almost, was it 10 years? What year did you do that in?
Probably like, yeah, probably like, oh my God, probably like 7 or 8 years ago, or maybe close to 9 years ago now, because I was like in my early 20s and I'm 31 now. So
Mm-hmm. I remember
it's
just
just
seeing you
insane.
like going through that process and then getting on Instagram and your Instagram following like blowing up. And I'm like, oh my God, look
Yeah.
at my friend. Look at my friend go, and
Yeah.
it was just really cool. And going through the prep myself and being like, wow, you know, the pride I had in being your friend and like the inspiration, it's like I'm doing it. So I just wanted to circle back and say you're a big part
Mhm.
of, what inspired me to do that too.
Yeah.
So
I love
yeah,
that. You killed it. That was great. That was a great competition. You looked amazing.
thank you.
Loved
I
it.
will
We used to
never do it
work.
again, but
I know that was like me. I was like, I did a couple shows and I was like, I'm never going to do this again. Mind you, it set me up for a lot of good habits in terms of like routine and with working out and all of that. But yeah, it's a very acquired taste. And I was like, yeah, it's not for me.
yeah, it's a lot. So,
But
yeah.
yeah.
So that was the Capricorn episode. And
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful to have a wonderful Capricorn in my life. So thank you again for coming on the podcast, being the first in true
Thank you.
fashion of Capricorn.
Yeah.
It's funny to just prepping for this for all the other signs and like meeting with the girls and going over stuff. You're like, so can we just skip to the recording? Like,
Yeah.
when I'm not busy, fit it in and let's just do this. Like
Oh my
Capricorn,
God.
love
Yeah.
it.
Like, yeah, let's just start recording. And then also had to, so sorry, I had to, for everyone listening, had to reschedule the first call because, of course, work got in the way. I was like, I'm so sorry to do this. And I have a work thing. Can we record it next week? Like, couldn't be, it's just comical at this point
I
how
know.
accurate it is.
I remember too one time we were working out together and we were like timing our planks. And I was planking and I couldn't see you. And I was like, this has been a really long plank. How long? And you're like, oh shit, sorry, I was answering an email. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, I was working. I'm like, fucking Capricorn.
You're like, what time is it? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Closing my Gmail.
True Capricorn fashion. I love it.
Love it.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So happy to have you in my
Well,
life.
so happy that I'm here. Thank you so much for having me. It was
Of
great.
course. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.